Aloha mai kako. Welcome to Huewai Ola. Mahalo nui to ʻAi Pono crab for that oli. My name is Kale Chang. It's my pleasure to be your host. Huewai Ola is brought to you by Ahakane and Kanayo Kana. This series is an opportunity for us to strengthen our ohana by uplifting and empowering our kane, our Hawaiian men. Huewai Ola means gourd of living water, referring to man as a vessel of life guided by the god Kane. In Hawaiian culture, gourds also represent knowledge. In this series, we'll be introducing you to some extraordinary kane, cultural practitioners, scholars, and leaders in our community. They'll share their perspectives, practices, and advocacy in our lahui. We'd like to take a moment to welcome all our viewers out there. Aloha mai kako. Mahalo nui for joining us today. We'd like this to be an interactive experience. So before we begin, please shoot us a quick aloha in our Zoom chat box or Facebook comments and let us know where you're joining us from. Also, feel free to leave comments or ask questions all throughout the hour, and we'll do our best to respond to as many as possible. All right, welcome to episode 7 of Huewai Ola. Again, my name is Kale Chang. It's my pleasure to be your host. This episode is entitled ʻAi Pono. Our guest for today, well, along with his wife, he has a company called Ecology. And in that company, he runs something called Kamoa's Kitchen, Mea'ai, and Mo'olelo, and other wonderful programs. We have a lot of fun things to talk about today. Please help me welcome Kamoa Quitevis. Aloha mai.
Kalamai. Aloha mai kako.
Okay, hey, aloha. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. Super happy to be a part of this program. Look forward to having this discussion and being a part of this as we move forward.
All right, I know something that you wanted to share specifically today was not just by means of food, but more so the connection between ʻai and kanaka and ʻai and aina and so forth. So I guess if we can start touching on that a little bit.
Yes. First, my name is Kamoa Quitevis. I was born in Kahalua. I live in Makaha now. I'm coming to you from under the mango tree in Makaha today. It's a beautiful day out there. Yes, I think that when I talked to Keola about the concept of ʻAi Pono, I think it is right in alignment with things that me and my wahine have been doing. We started a company called Aina Ecology, Aina being that which feeds, being the land, being our ohana, and then ecology, meaning the study of all those encompassing things that Aina is, and how it overlaps with Kanaka, and that relationship between Aina and Kanaka. So Aina Ecology is really that actuation of Aloha Aina. I see basically all of our kupuna, all of our ancestors were Aina ecologists because they were intimately familiar and connected to their environments. And therefore everything that they did had a reverence, had a spiritual, religious connection, and had a strong tie to Aina. So Aina Ecology is our overarching company that we do all kinds of things, community work, community advocacy, research, mapping, anything that again perpetuates Loina culture practices and the Aina itself. But part of that, a lala of that, or a branch of that, is our food company, is Kamoa's Kitchen, Mea'ai, and Mo'olelo. Mea'ai and Mo'olelo is that overlapping of those two things. With every piece of food, with every opportunity that we sit down and eat, there are stories that go with that. We create stories and stories of the past. There was food tied to it, and every food there's a story tied to it. So not even specifically where that food is coming from, you know what I mean? It tells a big story. And currently today, I think anytime you sit down and look at your food and you contemplate where it's coming from, there's going to be a story connected to it. And that story can be related to whether that food is pono or not, and whether that food is going to add to our well-being as individuals, our kino, our bodies, our maoli, our spirits, and the lahui as a whole. So that's that overarching thing that we're trying to do with ecology, which really ties into this concept of sharing with the broader community. And we've been doing a few different programs already in partnership with the Waianae Coast Comprehensive. It's called Craving and Creating the Ono in ʻAi Pono. And that's just what it is. It's exploring the different foods that are available to us, where we can get them. And we look at traditional recipes, and then we look at innovative ways to create dishes that are really enticing to the palate, as well as strengthening to our bodies and our health, and again, our overall well-being. We also do that with Molokai Community Health Center. Right now, of course, because of the COVID-19, those things have been put on pause, but we're looking forward to starting those back up when appropriate. And I see this opportunity as kind of an extension of that as well. And that's why I thought it made a lot of sense to take this opportunity to kind of really lay a foundation on the concept of ʻAi Pono, and dig deep into what that means, and really that will support, I think, moving forward, where we can start to look at actual recipes, and what are the best things that we can make today with the best ingredients that are gonna make us happy inside our na'au, in our opu, but also for overall olakino, for our overall health and well-being. So one of the things when I think about kane and mea'ai, I'm the cook of my family. I have been from the beginning, and I grew up cooking from a very young age, learning from my kupuna, and then all kinds of other sources along the way as well. And both traditional cooking, traditional foods, which is my favorite, and especially those traditional mea ono, meaning like the pupus and stuff that you can harvest from the oceans and from the mountains, and but then also all kind of other worldly cuisine. On that same note, when it comes to the concept of ʻAi Pono and health, me as an individual and in partnership with my wife, we've been on a quest for some time to find what is healthy living, what is healthy eating. And so a lot of these concepts have been developed by our own exploration, our own research, and we've tried multiple things. So I'll touch on some of those things too within this process. But definitely,
Okay.
yes, go ahead. Do you have something?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting, and I
No.
apologize for going out of order, but I meant to ask you first before diving into this. Can you give us a little background on like where you grew up and how this became an integral part of your life, or even some bullet points before that? Like, just tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I was born in Waihe'i Valley, Kahalu side on Oahu. I was born in a bamboo house above a lo'i. My father delivered me. I didn't get a birth certificate till some years later. In fact, from the Waianae Coast Comprehensive. So I had I guess at my age, I had somewhat of a unique upbringing. For some time, we mostly ate what we grew and what we caught. And I thought that was pretty much how everybody did it, and that changed. That changed fairly quickly, and my life was integrated into the rest of society, and eating all kinds of things and different things. But I guess that early perspective did really set a foundation for me, and not just for me, but for Aina in general, having a very strong connection to Aina. My piko is still resides there in Waihe'e. And I think that that has always left an impression on me. I moved around quite frequently from there. I lived in Molokai, I lived in Hawaii Island, Ko, Waimea, Honoka'a, Honomu, um, but mostly in rural areas. So I had both the privilege and the pain of living in these beautiful rural communities where traditional practices or customary practices were pretty established. But because of that, I also, within a short amount of time, I seen environments and practices dismantled and destroyed quite quickly. You know what I mean? Places I dove as a child, by the time I was 17, were decimated. And so that this strong connection to Aina and this unique perspective on how things were changing because of Western culture, Western values moving in, left a lasting impression. And I think that's a foundation of how I've come to where I am. Both me and my wife, I met my wife actually in Japan some years ago. She's from Waianae though. And both of us shared a lot of these values. And she had a lot of perspective from traveling and from hula and from her own kumu and stuff. But when we moved back home, we both immersed ourselves in various different traditional schoolings and became pretty staunch advocates for Aina and for Kanaka and for Lahui. And so this phase of Ainacology is really a culmination of all of it. It's a realization that all the different things we do as Kanaka, from traditional practices to arts to food, to Malama Aina working in our garden, all of them are connected, and all of them have to do with our well-being and our ea, our sovereignty. And so Ainacology is really that collectiveness of those things that we need to continue to do to reestablish ourselves in, I guess, all aspects. And my wahine Lemaile, she came up with the metaphor, the a mala, she calls it a mala metaphor, and I think it's really appropriate in talking about the concept of ʻAi Pono. So it's simple. Mala, she says mala, ma lama, and ma lama lama. So mala is your garden, right? And it's the root word for these other two words, ma lama to care for, right? And one of the things is we realize when we go in a garden, we start working the aina, we start having this relationship with not just the aina but our food, because we start growing our food. And we realize that we're not just the ones doing the malama. We're not malama the aina only. The aina goes also reciprocally malamas us. You know what I mean? And so that second level of malama, once you get in the mala, you start to have reciprocal action of malama. And as you grow in that, I think, and I know many people will know this, because a lot of times that was the trigger, right? You got out into the lo'i and you started learning cultural practices and this and that, or maybe you were raised in that way, and that becomes the foundation. But hopefully there's levels then of ma lama lama, or enlightenment, and that occur. And so it's like a stage, the root being mala, the foundation being mala, that core being ma lama, and then the goal. And it's not a goal that you reach at some point, but it's a goal that you can reach over and over again and continue to grow with the idea of ma lama lama, enlightenment. um so for us, one of the experience I had was I lived in Wahiawa for several years. Me and Lemaile did, and we were with the Hawaiian Civic Club there. And at the time, the Army was proposing to do an expansion on Schofield Barracks with Stryker Brigade, and bring all kind of new troops, all kind of new live ordnance training. And so we jumped in with other community members and started fighting against that. And because of that, we became more connected with the kupuna and of that area in Wahiawa, or traditionally known as Lihu'e, among other things. And we became very connected to Kukani Loko, the people here in Oahu. And that to us was really a foundation that grew, a desire inside us to continue to strive for these things, and to look at concepts, traditional concepts on how we can increase our well-being. And again, that ties right into ʻAi Pono. And I think part of the message I'm trying to get across is the idea of ʻAi Pono isn't a stagnant one, outside of other concepts. Like in Western thought, you can talk about health, healthy eating or a healthy diet outside of other things. I think from a traditional wellness perspective, from la'au lapa'au and those kinds of ideas, that's not the same thing. If you're going to talk about ʻAi Pono, then you have to talk about all kinds of other pono, because you can't really achieve ʻAi Pono by just eating healthy things. So I think that's a good amount of my background. I went to I went to culinary school in Napa Valley, Culinary Institute of America. My foundation though was built here at home, learning from kupuna from when I was starting around 11 years old. I became pretty avid cook within my family. But I also went to college and got a degree in cultural anthropology, and certificates in political science, environmental studies, and botany. All of those combinations, again, really looking at the dynamics of what it means to be Kanaka today. And that's where the term anacology comes from, is because knowing our kupuna, we're really that dynamic, being a part of their environments rather than outside of it, trying to control it. And so so yeah, for a time, again, with our fabulous Oli opener, Kamoa Pono Crab, I was under the research department with him when he first started. And when he became the CEO, I became shortly after, I became the lead researcher for land culture and history. And I created the Kipuka database. That's the Office of Foreign Affairs GIS database that highlights traditional land tenure, place names, and all of those things, and of what food means and what ʻAi Pono means, and that's created, I guess, this space that we're in now, integrating all of those things.
So I know most of your efforts are on the preparation side of things, but are you also involved in the farming side, or do you have partnerships you work with, or do you have aina that you have access to?
Yes, excellent. Excellent. And I think what you've hit on there with that question, the answer is yes, absolutely. We have our own mala. In fact, it's right behind me. We have mango trees. I have niu, I have ko, I have noni. Recently, I enjoyed something pretty outstanding. I was climbing my kukui tree in the back that just started getting nuts recently. So just about be able to make inamona as soon as those dry out a little bit more. But I planted that, about 5 years ago. So it was the first time that I climbed the tree that I planted, which is pretty interesting. And I think, that's, I mean, it was ono. It made me feel super good. And I think that, to me, is maybe one of the first foundational things about ʻAi Pono. What is ʻAi Pono? This idea of what is right, correct, healthy food, righteous food, and I think the first thing is it's the food that's closest to you. I mean, if you can grow food, which almost all of us have an opportunity. There's all kinds of technologies, both old and new, where you can grow container gardens, hydroponics. I mean, literally on your patio, or in your yard, people are doing extensive farming or mala action, right? That first level, right, with small spaces, with limited space and limited resources, And there's all kinds of resources online, YouTube and everything else that talks about how to regrow things, how to germinate seeds and all of those things. So I think getting food locally is really important concept of ʻAi Pono. And so we work with in our community out here in Waianae, we work with Ka'ala Farms. Huewai
Oh,
Ola
yes.
Makaha is at Makaha Elementary. We work with Ma'o Farms. We work with also, yeah, so and we access food from them for our catering, for our food service business, for our food truck, as well as doing our workshops with the Waianae Coast Comprehensive. And currently, we've been doing feeding for kupuna during this time. So the most
Oh,
of our
nice.
business has been shut down during the COVID. So we first partnered with some people to do some keiki feedings at the schools that weren't getting fed by the DOE. So there were actually several schools out here, and there are a lot of people out here. Like if you're not within walking distance, they don't have an opportunity to go and get food. So in partnership with Waianae Coast Comprehensive, Nakamakai, Hoa'aina, and several other community partners, we did some keiki feeding for several weeks when COVID first happened. And then once the DOE kicked in and started jumping in on those schools, we moved into doing kupuna feeding, and that's in partnership with Catholic Charities as well as Office of Wine Affairs. And that's all we've been doing right now is focusing on our own mala, our own mauli, and as well as the kupuna and making sure they have access to food. Um, so that's a big thing, and I think for everybody one of the first steps could be identifying, what are the local farmers in their area, and what kind of resources are there, what kind of, sometimes local farms, that there's farmers markets where you can access stuff. Sometimes their stuff ends up in the local supermarkets, and you like Ma'o Farms, you can buy their greens and stuff all over the place. But finding what's local is, I think, a really good first step in identifying what's pono, because a lot of the food comes from, thousands of miles away, and it's shipped here on barges, and it has to be held for so long, and they gas them and they put preservatives on them. And so the more distance you put from the source of the food and that end product, the more unhealthy it's going to be. There's just no other way around it. And so the closer you can get it, the healthier it's definitely going to be. So knowing your local farms and your local farmers is a great first step. And that's wherever you are, a great first step to identifying what is ʻAi Pono. I think from there, the next kind of step would be to look at um, look at you are again and where your ancestry or background might be. But traditional foods are really known to be super healthy. For Native Hawaiians in particular, every person that came here early on and was able to see the early Hawaiians said that they raved at how healthy and strong we were, and the population, and how immense the feeding capacity was of the Aina, looking at all of the lo'i that spread across the land and all of the other agriculture and aquaculture and systems that were in place. It baffled them, and I think to this day are still unrivaled in the world. And I think it's something that we really need to get back towards as well.
Mahalo. If I could sidetrack just for a second, talking about the lockdown and this COVID-19, I had a couple of friends that were working with the, what's it called, the Show Aloha program. And they were just delivering, just driving out to West Side, Waianae, Makaha side to deliver food. And they were telling stories of how impactful that was. And so I'm glad you mentioned that you were doing that as well. Do you have any stories about that and how big of a difference it made for your community? Because you're right, like some of those guys, if they can't drive, they're basically, there's no access to
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's tons of people struggling, and I think there even before COVID, I think there's a lot of need that's not being met within our
Right,
various
right.
communities. Waianae Moku being one of the most populated by Native Hawaiians anywhere. There, of, of course, are disproportionate numbers in poverty and everything else. It's critical. It's critical that we have these opportunities. And yes, me and my wife Leimale feel so privileged to be able to help and work in conjunction with these other partners to get food directly to the kupuna, to our keiki. And we're really trying to figure out how we can continue these kinds of programs even after this, this dramatic my chicken's running around.
Oh,
After
nice.
this, yeah. And it is amazing how many people have stepped up, individuals, community organizations, and have partnered up, thrown down in many ways, even putting themselves in jeopardy during this time to make sure that we would get those resources people. And I know every time, and there's so many, like you said, you have your own Hoaloha who are doing similar things. There's so many people that are throwing down, and there's still need out there.
Yeah.
And so it's awesome, though. It's awesome to see communities come together. I mean, um, that's one of the things I've noticed during this time is among other things, there's a lot of beautiful connection. There's a lot of community and lahui action, if you will, coming out of this, where people are stepping up to support each other and really care for those things that we value most, like our keiki and our kupuna. And then in the process, our aina, because most of these programs are also very cognizant of the local farmers, as you're talking about. And so connecting the people who are providing and creating the food products with the farmers so that the farmers have a venue to then sell their products and get it out. And it, again, it's a situation that doesn't always occur because there's all these other huge corporations and vendors where we typically get food from. So in an interesting way, it's created an opportunity to start to shift some of those things a little bit more. Yeah, I know, like, so Hawaii no Makaha, right here, every week they're providing produce, but they're also giving starter plants. They're giving seeds,
Oh, wow.
both food seeds as well as native endemic Hawaiian plants and La'au Lapa'au plants and seeds. And so even they were handing out brochures, Aloha Aina packets, they're calling it, to explain, like say when they passed out ali seeds, they had, it would come with olelo no ea, would come with planting instructions. Again, it really, again, ties to that concept of Aina and Kanaka and tying those two things together again, because if the land is healthy, the people will be healthy. I mean, even modern Western science is really looking at this nowadays, and the biological makeup of the soil and that creating healthy agriculture, healthy forests, also has the direct link of our own biological makeup internally, and which is a strong indicator of our own health and well-being.
Mahalo. Thank you for sharing. So when people think of a chef is going to be a guest, they think of hearing stories about their progression in the industry and restaurants they've worked at, people they've cooked for. I found it very heartwarming that your first thing you told me was your program to work with keiki and the mea'ai and mo'olelo and connecting the generations through this, uh, through ʻAi Pono. Can you tell me a little bit more about that program and what's happening with that?
So we started this a while ago. It was really my wife's concept because, like everybody else, we have to deal with our own issues of health, right, and well-being.
Right.
So over time, that's why we practice a lot of different diets and concepts on how to be healthy. And one of the things is, if you're faced with, okay, all you got to do is eat this healthy stuff, and definitely from a Western perspective, it's like, okay, don't eat this, don't eat that, don't eat this, and all you can eat is that. And majority of time that's going to turn people off, because eating is, again, it's a huge part of our well-being, and it's not just the physical aspects of what we're eating, but how we feel. And if you take everything away that we grew up eating, if you take everything away that makes us feel good when we eat, then
you only have a list of what you know can happen.
yeah, or if that's exactly, if
Right.
you start with a
That's a good
list
point.
of no, no, no,
Would you like?
Hmm.
you guys, yeah. Why don't I have my wife Lemali come and talk a little
Yeah,
bit about it?
please. Aloha.
She definitely can really explain what that craving and creating the ono in ʻAi Pono. This is Lemaile,
All
my
right.
beautiful wife Lemaile.
And I was in the
Aloha,
mall.
Mai. All right.
My
Surprise guest. I love it.
yeah. So I have diabetes, and one day it just I didn't know until the next day, but I was rushed to the emergency. I had diabetic ketoacidosis. And see, I thought my health was okay because I cleanse a lot. Like I do really good healthy ʻai Pono stuff, and then I bust a loose for like a couple months, like 3 months
Right.
on, 3 months off. Like that. I figured, hey, that's good balance. We could like. Anyway, when this happened, it really scared me. I didn't realize that because this is gonna be high, but so they told me like my blood sugar was like 300. I was like, what? 300? I've been higher than that before. And anybody will tell you that's high, but if you've been diabetic for as long as I have been, you're like, shh, that's nothing. But anyway, I got really sick. I had to go to the hospital for a few days, but when we came out, I started looking at what I was gonna do to change my health. And every
Mhm.
time when you do this, there's a list of all these things you cannot do. So for me, I was like, I will focus on what I honor for, like really honor for. So I love poke, good thing I'm married to a chef. I love seafood. I love vinegar. So I started, instead of thinking of the things I couldn't have, I started thinking of what I could that was good for my kino. So started talking to my husband, and like he mentioned earlier, we tried all of this stuff, and I was like, "That's it, my love. We gotta look at craving and creating the ono, like the ono in ʻai Pono. Not just we're gonna get healthy. ʻai Pono is this, and you gotta do all of that." I was like, no, because what you crave is what you like. Like if
Right.
you're craving something, like you're gonna have to have them. And so if we start focus on the stuff that we honor for, and then we craving those specific things, like we know which things is good for us and bad for us, but there's some things that are honor for us that sometimes we don't even think of craving for it, but listing it out and doing it that way. And so
Right.
I still have a very sweet tooth, but we found we did some research, and we looked at what you call it, lakanto.
Mm-hmm.
They have monk fruit. Yeah, and so that's a natural sweetener. It's not artificial sweetener, but an actual sweetener grown by monks. I mean, come on, look at that mana. And so
And yeah, I'll
and
talk
then
a
you
little
can
bit
go, yeah.
about that too.
But
Yeah.
that's where it started. So I spoke to um I was getting phone calls from Nat at the Molokai
Community health center.
Community Health Center, and then we already had a partnership and doing a lot of things with our Waianae Coast Comprehensive Health Center, and they have a great leader in the health promotion department, Alicia Higa, and she does so much for our community. So mahalo, Alicia, we love you.
Aloha, Alicia.
But yeah, so I was so excited that day. I woke up early and I knew I had to create this. So I talked to the both of them, and then it happened. They're like, yes, please come. And just so happened, there ends up like in Molokai, they tied it with their diabetes program. And here in Waianae, the first time we had an auntie and an uncle. And the wahine, auntie came up to Kamoa afterwards crying, and she said, my husband, because her husband had diabetes. You know him, huh? He don't like this kind of stuff. But this, he like. He listened to you. The mo'olelo between the food, yeah, and our health, and the ono and the pono. And she was in tears because he liked it and he was going to come back. And at our workshop, so that connection, we know a big part of the ono for us is when you plant your food and then you enjoy and you taste. And even better if you cook and you give to the community. So we started giving starters. Every workshop, we give starters for different food, different mea kanu. And in Waianae, so the really cool thing between Waianae and Molokai is in Waianae, we know our mo'olelo. This is our home. So tying you still learn more because that's my superpower is I love learning. But tying the mo'olelo to the mele, to this space and place that we're from, it's more familiar with us, but there's still so much to learn. So sharing that with our own community, that's part of the ono. Like we mapping mele and mo'olelo and food, the meal kanu and all of that together.
That's how those courses go. We'll pick like a mea'ai, and we started with traditional stuff. Like, of course, we started with kalo.
Before you do that part, can I just tell the difference between Waianae and Molokai? So the difference is we know Waianae, and he used to live there, but I'm malahini to Molokai. So us learning the mo'olelo. So approaching a place to share mo'olelo when there was so much for us to learn was so the balance between the two was like magic as far as us growing in this mala that we're creating together.
We got to connect with the people over there and
Natalie Luxan, so she was the coordinator there that invited us to come, and she's also very maika'i. Her and Punahele, Olelo Punahele, that's her name. Oh, that's Punahele is not her last name. Olelo is her name. She just got married, so I don't know her last name now, but they're doing really amazing work on Molokai. But going there, so they shared some of the mo'olelo. So we started on Molokai, we started with Uala because of their olelo with the giant and anyway, we won't get into that. But the balance, that to me, that was ono. The balance of sharing and experiencing a place that we're from and going to another place and finding recipes and finding the ono there and here. And okay, now go back and I'm gonna run off.
So that's I think that was an excellent segue just to kind of talk about the process that we do.
No kahaoli. I'm right here, no worries.
She probably jumped back on again in a little bit, but
good.
Just wanted to go through the process that we do because I think that it highlights again some of the ideas of ʻAi Pono. So we'll select a plant, a mea'ai, and then so we, for example, like she talked about a Molokai, we did Uala because they have mo'olelo Uala over there, and the story of Uala is very strong with Molokai, so it made sense. And again, we didn't come to tell them about it. We came and we learned about it there, and then we worked with the community to really again identify what is ʻAi Pono to all of us. Individually, and collectively. It's one of the things we always it's anybody's one person's space to say what is no more access to food, and food is ʻAi Pono. You know what I mean? Like, because if no more nothing, then gotta eat what get, and that's important because get plenty people, no more nothing. So they gotta any little bit of food is I think wonderful for them, and it's gonna help their maoli. But we would select a plant like kalo, and then we will talk about the story of kalo and how kalo is an older sibling, and haloa nakalau kapalili, and talk about traditional mo'olelo, if there's olelo no'eao attached to them, if there's stories about food that connect to that space we're in, we talk about those things as well.
The farmer,
then we connect currently, like, okay, we access this taro from this space. This taro variety is this, and which means this, and and so talking about the mo'olelo of the food is a foundational piece. It brings us in, it reconnects us to that mea'ai again, which that mea'ai, of course, reconnects us to Aina. And then when we start talking about, okay, this is the traditional or this is the nutritional value of this food, this is why it's more healthy for you than a white potato, why this kalo is way more vitamins, way more fiber, why it doesn't affect the glycemic index as much as these other starches like white rice might do. That's not, it's just not like a stale conversation, but it's bringing that in through the mo'olelo of our connection to this plant, our
Which is
connection to
part
this
of the
food,
ono.
which is part of the ono, which is part of which is part of the ʻAi Pono. And then from there we make a few dishes, demonstrate at our courses, the luau, you know what I mean. And we also
Hey,
we also then
aole,
we also
no,
then incorporate
aole. Oh, sorry.
we also incorporate new that. So various types of put it on these fresh made chips, and so I made chips at this thing. So again, it's looking at traditional foods, it's looking at the story of those foods, it's looking at the nutritional of those foods, then looking at traditional recipes as well as new innovative recipes where you can really get ono. And that's what we do at those workshops. Those things are too, they're open to whoever wants to come. Free. I mean, they're just and I know not everybody lives in Waianae or Molokai, but I think these types of programs could grow. I mean, I think again, uh, locally, yeah, and in the end we sit down and we all eat together, and we talk story. And what we found, and that's why the name of our food truck, Kamoa's Kitchen Mea'ai and Mo'olelo, is so important, is what we found is when you talk about mo'olelo, when you integrate stories and histories into the food, then the ike, the mana'o, it is consumed in more ways than one, and it sits deep inside. And from participants, they've said that it's really changed their perspective on the mo'olelo, because now after we talk about it, now you eating it, now you consume it, but also for the food, as you eating it, now you have a concept of how it's connected to us in deeper ways and those types of things.
Nice. So I know you grew up in Kalu'u, fishing and cooking and farming a little bit. When you went to Napa Valley for culinary school, did you gain a bigger appreciation for your aina here at home and your food here at home? Or was there any connections
Absolutely.
made through? Yeah.
Yeah, and the Napa Valley was just another tangent. Really, out of high school, I went into the military. I went to the Navy. At the time, it was the only opportunity I really had to kind of move out of the situation I was in. And it really shaped me, because it really helped me understand what I didn't like and didn't want. And particularly, militarization in Hawaii. To me, I'm a staunch opponent to any of that, because of my experiences. But I actually started cooking while I was in the military, and it's kind of interesting story. But I ended up shortly after started working cooking in the officers' mess. I became the captain's cook, so I only cooked for the captain on that ship. And that's
Oh,
they actually went to the culinary school in Napa Valley through that mechanism, because the Navy actually staffs the White House. But I put a quick one on them as soon as I took that. After that, I went to that school, I got out. I got out of the military, and I actually started attending college here and looking more again into traditional sources of knowledge, la'au, lapa'au, lomi lomi, lua, and our traditional teachers here, Kumu Lake, and I guess numerous others. Really, again, connecting to the Aina is really what grounded and connected me. But the different places. So I've traveled a lot around the world, and I would say from a culinary perspective, you do gain a lot by trying all kinds of different foods, and then trying to cook and mimic all kinds of different foods, and then looking at ingredients. Again, the ingredients come from Aina. So going to different Aina, they're going to have different ingredients, and then they're going to have different foods in relationship to their culture and to their Aina. So understanding that provides you a broader spectrum of tools to integrate into what I do today. And anybody, I think the cool thing is I'm pretty amazed at the authentic resources that are available, online to access, different types of cuisines and whatnot. But for me, it's definitely helped integrate, because I always go back to my traditional ingredients and look at how to juxtapose or how to overlap that with other delicious things, and make things that are both healthy and delicious and innovative, and also very attractive to the eye, right? What they say, you eat with your eyes all the time, and to make things beautiful for that, that's that first consumption. My wife said for her, and that's exactly true. As a Kane, when I cook for my ohana, that I get great pride in creating things. Yeah, for Kani, we can create in lots of ways, but I feel like cooking is a really special way, because not only can you create something that's beautiful, like when we build things and whatnot, or when you do art, but then it's also something that then is consumed and nourishes. We're actually feeding and contributing to the health and well-being of our ohana, our keiki, our kupuna, or makua, and whatever that ohana means, and specifically to your wahine. And but that, that's another thing I found, that there's with the kuleana comes great rewards, because if you can keep wahine happily fed and healthy, and eating delicious food, the 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 relationship or that love is reciprocal. The thing come
There's gotta
back.
be an olelon. There's gotta be an olelon oeau about that
Yeah,
someplace.
maybe I gotta write that one.
And I have to say, it's an adventure. Like our our eating experiences, like it's an extension of our love, because it's an adventure, because we both have traveled a lot, and of all the places, home is where it is, but we also challenge our taste buds, because I get ono for something and I'm like, okay, what do you think that looks like? And when I say I get ono for something, I'm not saying what kind of food. I'm like, oh, something kind of, I don't know, a little bit salty, maybe salty sweet. I don't know what I ono for, but it's
Right.
like that, and he'll figure something out. It's like magic. Or if or I like something soft, or it's cold. I need something really hot. Like I can give him clues like that, or just
Hmm.
express myself that way, and then he make magic.
I
He'll
love
create.
that, because the way you shift ʻai pono to something positive, ʻai ono, like think of
Yeah,
I
creative
oh no,
ways
pulele,
to eat
yeah,
native
pulele.
foods, right? And I'm
yes,
Yeah.
glad you also mentioned how for Kane, you're talking about how important it is to cook in the home, because let's say guys in their 30s or 40s trying to reconnect with their culture, right? What's the first thing they go
mhm,
to? Hula or
yeah,
lua or arts and
yeah,
crafts. I bet you would argue that the first thing they should consider is ʻai pono, right?
yeah. Because
I
there's
concur.
yeah there's really a foundational, I mean, piece that if you think about everyday life of our ancestors, for Akane, that would have been the most important thing, right? To
Right.
prepare imu, to prepare food, the collection of it, the growing of it. It was the foundation, and then because a lot of the roles of Kane today have been again dismantled. Like
Right.
our
Definitely.
the opportunities to be a warrior have changed, at least at a minimum, and that was huge for us. But one of the things that there's still an opportunity to recapture, and there's an opportunity to recapture everything, I think, even the warrior aspect. But one of those things that we recapture every day and start. You can start anywhere. That's why you can start just with on the barbecue. You know what I mean? Because that's where it
Mhm.
starts with the ahi, with the fire. The cooking is
Right.
really a control, a manipulation of fire. And I know Wahine have strong connection with fire too, of course, with Pele. But when it comes to the halekuke, when it comes to the food, Kane had to have known that to the utmost level. Like no fire scientist today would be able to rival a Kanaka of the past who could control fire in many aspects to create food dishes.
No matter the wind,
Yeah, no matter wind,
rain.
rain,
Like,
terrain.
Right.
just think about that. No
Yeah,
matter the
Mhm.
terrain, you have to figure
yeah,
out how to keep your fire going. Like that right there is a masterful art.
yeah,
And so now we get hale, so we have,
yeah.
you get covering, but most of our kitchen, if I turn around right there, a lot of our kitchen is also outside. So
Mhm.
it's still figuring that out. And I tell you right now, gentlemen, if there's any gentlemen here, the most aromatic and to me the sexiest perfume or cologne one man can wear, is like smoked meat, like that smoke smell, like from the barbecue or from cooking outside. Oh, I tell you, anyone here
Yeah.
gonna tell you, it's like, whoa, like you smell it when he walk by. It's like, whoa, that guy, like, number one, he's sexy, he's a provider, but he can make fire
Yeah.
or you make magic,
Yeah.
It's like when he's like that, I'm like, but today, but we won't smoke Marlin, I think, after this, I'll be happy.
Nice.
Oh,
Well, even on the farming side, you're talking about conditions, right? You're learning how to farm
hey.
in a nice wet area or dry land, or
Mhm.
Or
being able to
even,
learn
yeah,
that
what
side of things too. Yeah.
knowing we live in Makaha, what can grow here. And
Right.
even in
Right.
Makaha, if you look behind us, we can still have ferns in the shady area. You know, when we work in our mala, it's it's an adventure too, because let's see how this can grow here. If it doesn't do so well, maybe we try on this side of the yard, or maybe we need to add this kind of food to it. Like what is our plants ono for? Yeah, a lot of
Mm.
times we think
Right.
of how we going to eat them, but what are they ono for? What do they need? Do they need more nitrogen, or they like me put my coffee on top? Because when you take your coffee, yeah, afterwards you can put on top to it helps to bring more
Oh, right.
nitrogen
Right.
to the soil. There's so many different ways, and then
So
yeah.
besides that big kukui tree, anything else surprise you in Maka, in the area that you're able to plant and it just flourished and got really, really nice in
I,
your mala?
we our coal, and I guess that's not necessarily surprising. Is the ideal climate, but our native coal sugar canes have grown massive, like crazy kind. But
Nice.
when you ask that question, I have a little bit of mo'olelo that really
Mhm.
amazed us is so Lemaile's family has been in this property for some generations now, but after that, the front area was overgrown with grasses and stuff like that. So when we started to
High invasive
yeah,
plant.
when we started to huli the aina and get prepared to start planting things, I dug out all of this California grass and haulicoas and stuff like that. And then after we went through a rainy season and we got a lot of weeds growing back up, and I chopped them down and started planting here and there. And then
This is
um,
exciting. Great
really,
part.
really interesting. A lot of ilima started growing out in the
And
yard.
natives
Oh,
Yeah,
started
and a
thriving.
couple other native plants started coming up.
Popolo.
We got popolo. We had the ilima. We had another type of native flower coming out. That so, is when you really think about it, the native seeds are still in the ground, and this I know this from botany class too. I mean, they can stay in for even more than 100 years because ilima haven't grown in this vicinity for I don't know how long, but you know what I mean. But just digging it up,
right.
tilling the soil, and then going through a raining season, and the weeds that came up actually provided some shade and shelter for the seedlings to
To
come up.
come up.
So then I got a bunch of Ilima in the yard, and it just made me think about our own traditional practices, our Ike, our Mana'o as Kanaka. All of the seeds are still there, right? We just got to till the soil. We got to get to that first level of mala, and not just our
Right.
physical mala, but our internal mala. We got to dig up in that dirt a little bit, mix it around, and the native portions, the plants gonna grow back. So our native concepts, our native ideas, our native thought processes, they will all be rejuvenated within us. It's just really a relearning, a reawakening. And to
Yes.
see it physically happening on the Aina
Right.
was amazing. You know what I mean? To have only non-natives and nothing healthy, to native endemic plants growing out, and now we got both native endemic plants that naturally occurred here as well as stuff that we planted, and then we have food plants. You know
From
what I mean?
Huewai Ola.
Yeah.
But that's another thing
Eh,
too. Like as Mahi Ai, like our kuleana there, like we think it's to, of course, one part of it is to plant, but the other part is just to clear, right? And when we think of our own mauli, like sometimes we get so busy working all this hana we gotta do, but sometimes we just have to clear, right? We just gotta clear,
mhm.
we gotta breathe, and that's what our aina needs too. Like sometimes just the clearing, like it was amazing, and that we had popolo to me was a whole Ilona because that was my tutu's favorite la'o, and and not even just la'o. Tell about the imu, about
Oh,
Uncle Howard's imu
yeah. I mean, another, I guess, Ho'ailona was
business
that I was digging to
right over there in the
by a
back.
coconut tree. I was thinking, oh, this is a good spot to make a ahi pit. You know what I mean? And then I started hitting like fire burnt stone, and as I dug more, I realized was on old emu. And then when I asked the rest of the ohana, hey, what was over here? Sure enough, that same exact spot was the family emu back in the
Was
day.
Uncle Howard's imu. Yeah,
Oh, I
because my
see the
cousin
sign.
Lena. So, like, how
All
is that
right.
for ancient,
Yeah.
like, mo'okuauhau? A little bit mo'okuauhau is right there in the aina too, you know?
That's nice. Right, right.
Like, I probably ate some of that
So
imu
how
when I
can
was 5.
people get in touch with you for um to be a part of your programs or um connect with you if they'd like?
Want me to?
Yeah, we have email us at aloha@inecology.com. Um, our number is 808-799-0376. Um, at Kamoa's Kitchen Instagram. What is your
Oh, yeah,
Instagram?
at Instagram, at just Kamoa's Kitchen.
Yeah, Kamoa's Kitchen.
And there's a new one for Inecology
Yeah,
too.
also have one for Inecology, and then kamoaskitchen.com. We have a web page. But I think we'd also like to follow up with this program, and like we do with our other craving and creating ono and ʻai pono, start moving into talking about a little bit other things associated with ʻai pono. But I really think this was an excellent way to start a conversation about ʻai pono, because ʻai pono for Kanaka is not about healthy eating. It's about
It's
well-being.
one part of
Yeah,
it.
and well, yeah, it's definitely about that, but it's about the well-being of both Kanaka and Aina, and
And all the
yeah,
aspects.
and all of its aspects, and having to look at that collectively. And I think we need to say that first before we start talking about what to cook.
And for this Kanaka, especially the ono and ʻai pono, like I need the
Yes.
ono. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of us are like that. So yeah, mahalo.
Oh, thank you both so much for taking the time to share with all our ohana out there. I'm going to do a couple of announcements to close our show this afternoon. But again,
Okay.
mahalo nui for joining us all the way from
Aloha.
Oklahoma.
Mahalo.
So much. Aloha.
Pono.
All right. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen, for this episode of He Huewai Ola. Be sure to tune into other Kanaiokana online programs. There's more, and it happens more often now. Wonderful opportunities to learn and share time. We had Le'a Nui Nui, Aloha Malia, if you're still with us, Aloha Rising, Kua Kanaka, ʻAi Kole, and of course, our own show, He Huewai Ola. Follow us on Instagram at Ahakane, or Kanaiokana, and our Facebook pages as well. Mahalo nui to our sponsors that make He Huewai Ola possible, Kanaiokana, Ahakane, Papaola Lokahi, and the Consuelo Foundation. We also like to remind you that, especially during this pandemic, but even when this thing lightens up a little bit, you have many resources out there, especially Kane. There's tons of resources. We want you to remember that you're not alone. Whenever you need assistance, there is somebody out there for you. Don't be afraid to reach out. We have a list of resources for you, including some for our kupuna, for our veterans. And this show will be on the website, so you can always go back and check out these resources and pause it. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have time, please help us improve by taking a short survey. Your voice does indeed matter. Again, tune in every Friday, 2 p.m. on Kanai Okana's Facebook or website. Mahalo again for joining us. My name is Kale Chang. Thank you for joining us here at He Huewai Ola. Ahui ho, aloha.